In this video, we are going to look at the more advanced features of layer styles. Now, in the beginner's Photoshop course, we used the layer style screen with the stroke option to create the border around our image. Now, the first step that we're going to need to do is to create a new layer. And that's going to be Ctrl+N on your keyboard, and that will give you the new layer dialog screen. Now the reason I'm creating this new layer is I want to have the image on its own layer that I'm going to put on top of this layer, as I want to add some text as well, so that I can show you that you can also add the effects from the layer styles dialog screen onto your text as well as your images. So I'm going to make this, say, a width of about 800, and I'm going to make it, say, the height about 1100 should do the trick. Right, so I'm just going to click on OK, and here we've got our empty canvas. I'm going to go to my second screen and I'm going to drag an image over. Now I can either drop the image on here if I want to, or I can drop the image right here. The only reason I'm not going to drop it here, it's going to create a smart object, and then there's some other extra steps I need to do. I don't want to go into all that detail right now, so I'm just going to drop it right here on this bar. I'm going to let go, and here I've got the image that I want to use for this exercise. Now to copy this over to our empty canvas, I'm just going to press Ctrl+A on the keyboard. If I press that, you can see I've got a selection now around my image, and I'm going to press Ctrl and C. That will copy this image, and I can now close this by going to this X right here. I'm not going to need that anymore, and I'm going to press Ctrl and V. Now we can see that that image is now being copied onto our empty canvas, and you can see that there as well. But now the empty canvas is smaller than the image that I've now pasted on top of it. So I need to now transform this image to fit onto that empty canvas. Now to do that, we are going to use the free transform tool that we also used in the beginner's Photoshop course, and the shortcut for that is Ctrl and T. Now you can see I've got a block around the image that's showing me where this picture is going, and it's running out of the screen. Now I don't want to go and do extra clicks on my navigator to now get to the exact size of this image. So I can just press Ctrl and 0 on the keyboard, and it's going to jump to the full image here. So now I can go to the edge here, and if your image goes like this and it's not in proportion, you can just hold down the shift key while you are dragging it smaller, and as you can see, no matter how I move my mouse, it's still keeping the image in proportion. So now I'm going to have it to say around there, and I'm going to just go to the navigator and zoom in so that we can see what we're doing here. And then I'm going to put the image, say, right about there. That should do the trick. Now if I want to center this layer 1 and this background layer, I can just click on the background layer by holding down the Control key and then just clicking on the background layer. Now I've got both of them selected. Then you go to your move tool right here, it's the first one, and you'll see at the top you've got these little icons here showing you where you want to have your image. For instance, if I click on this one, it's going to basically right justify the image. If I go to this one, it's going to left justify. If I click on this one, it's going to center it. And these options right here, this will put it at the bottom, this will put it at the top, and this one will center it in the middle. Now I don't want it centered in the middle, only centered on the sides. So when I'm done, I'm just going to click on the first image. I want this layer to be active. I can't move this image around the screen if this is not active. So now I'm going to go to this block, and if I'm going to drag it now, the image will be able to go like this. So if I hold down Shift, you'll see that the image is going straight. So I'm just going to drag it to the top and try and get the same exact size around the top as well. So now it just looks a little bit more neat right here. Now the size I chose for the white canvas is a little bit larger than I wanted, so I can make it smaller. I just want a piece of text right here, so this is a bit unnecessary. So I can go to my rectangular marquee tool, this one right here, we've also learned in the beginner's course, and I can just click right there outside the image, and I can drag my selection here. And I think this is about the space that I really need. Then I'm going to go to image, and I'm going to go to crop, and voila, we are done. It almost looks like a little Polaroid image. Now to get rid of these selection marks running around here. I'm going to press Control and D to deselect. And now it's time for me to do some layer style magic on this creation. Now as we did in the beginner's course, we are just going to go to this blue section right here. Don't double click on the word layer 1, otherwise it's going to rename it. Double click on this section right here. So when I double click there, I'm going to get my layer style dialog screen. Now this is where all the magic's going to happen. Now the first thing that I can do, I can create a drop shadow. So if I go here, don't just click on this block right here. You'll see it created a little bit of a drop shadow, but then this screen didn't change here. You need to click on the word drop shadow, and then you are going to get this option screen right here. Now you can use all the sliders here if you want to, for instance the distance and the spread. There's a very nice shortcut you can use, and that's by just going over to the image, and you'll see that when I've got my mouse here, I can see the normal mouse, and when I go out of this box, I'm getting the move icon, the same one that you can see here with the move tool. So if I click on the image, I can now move this drop shadow around. Isn't this just awesome? So I can now say, right, I want this drop shadow to be exactly, say, right there. Now I've still got the option of size and the option of spread. I can now still choose exactly how I want this effect to be. For instance, the spread, you can see we'll make it harder there, and the size will make it either larger or smaller. And I'm going to make it, say, like that. I'll take the spread down a little bit. And then I can go to my opacity and I can make the effect a little softer. I don't want that drop shadow to be as hard as it was. So here I've got a very soft drop shadow around my image. It's making the image look a little bit more 3D. Now we've also got the option here of inner shadow, and this will create the same effect that we got with the vignetting. So I'm going to click on the word inner shadow. Now here's one very important step. If you want to move the shadow inside this image, you must turn off the use global light. Otherwise, when you move this inner shadow, it's going to also move that drop shadow as well. So just turn off that use global light. Now you'll see that if I increase the size, you can see that vignetting effect, that shadow we're getting on the outsides of the image, or basically the insides here of the image. And then the choke will increase how hard that effect will be. So I can now have it something, say, like that, and I can go to my opacity and I can take it down a little bit so it's not as strong, to say maybe around, say, 30%. So if I click on this option right here, that's the before and that's the after. Now you can also put an outer glow or inner glow. That will give a glow effect on your image. For instance, if I go to inner glow and I increase the size, you can see you're getting this soft yellow glow effect. And you can also change the color of the glow by just changing this here. I'm not really going to play with this effect maybe on the text. I don't think it's really going to work with this image. It's a bit over the top. I think what we've done here is perfectly fine. So now I'm happy with what I've got here. We can also actually, before I just click OK here, we can now go and put a stroke around it. Because we've got that drop shadow, we can use a white stroke if you want to. So I've clicked on stroke, and I'm going to go to color, and I'm going to go to white. So now we can see that nice soft white line that we've got there. And you can also, if you want to, this is also very nice, when you are inside this color block, and you can select the color, you can move outside this block and you can go and grab a color from the image. So if you look here, I can go to this heart and I can click on this heart and I can sample the red from the heart, or I can go to this red right here and I can sample that, or I can go to this white here and I can just click on this. So I can sample colors from around this image. But now I'm going to use the white, so I'm going to click on OK. And then in the beginner's course, I told you to always have your position on the inside. And the reason was that if the border's on the outside, you couldn't see it. But now once you've put your image on top of a canvas like this, you can have your border, your stroke on the outside, and it'll look like this. Okay, if I create it too big, I'm not going to see it on a drop shadow, but I can make it slightly bit bigger. The only thing I don't like, it's got that rounded corners on the edge. So I always prefer to rather put it on the inside, and then it's got a square corner right there. So I'm going to rather put it on the inside, and then I'm going to make it a little bit smaller with the size, maybe say like 3 pixels. Now once that is done, I can now click OK here, and I've now created a lot of different effects. I've created a white stroke, a border around the image. I've created, as you can see with the dark corners on it, I've created like a vignetting effect with the inner shadow. And I've also created a drop shadow. The nice thing is we can see it saved all the work that we've done. If we want to go back to a specific one, I can just double click on this effects right here, and I can go back to those options. For instance, drop shadow, here's all my settings. Stroke, here's all my settings. And I could also turn the effects off by just clicking on these eyes. For instance, I can go to drop shadow, click on that, and it'll take the drop shadow effect away. I can put it back on by just clicking on the eye again. I can go to stroke, click on that, it'll take the stroke away. Or I can go to the eye on effects, I click on that one, and it's going to basically nullify all the effects. So there's lots of flexibility when doing this. So now let's put some text in here. So I'm just going to go to the text tool, I'm going to click on that, and then I'm going to move over to the section right here, and I'm going to click. Now I can see that I don't see my flickering line yet. It's because my point size is very small here. Just going to increase the point size. Right, now I can see that flickering line again. And then I'm just going to write here sample. I'm going to click on this button right here, so I'm happy with the text. And I'm going to go to my move tool. Click on the move tool. I'm just going to move it right there. And now I need to stretch it across this white section. So I'm going to again use the free transform tool. That's Control and T. I'm going to click on this edge right here. Now again, if it does this and it's not in proportion, just hold down the shift key and then your text will be in proportion. I'm just going to double click when I'm happy with it, and here I've got my sample text. Now the nice thing is the same effects that I applied here, I can now start to apply on the text as well. This is awesome. So if I go to this blue section right here, I can just double click on that, and again it opens the layer style for me. Now creating the drop shadow now, it'll be a bit stupid because you'll see if I click on it, it's just creating like a fuzzy little edge around this black text. The drop shadow will work better if my text is a different color. So let's first change the color of this text. I can go here to my color overlay and I can click on that word, and then you'll see the text will go red, and you've got this block here you can click on, the color, and you can choose different colors. And again, as always, you can just go out of this block and you can sample colors from the image, which is awesome. So that's one way of changing the color of your text. I'm just going to click on cancel here, and I'm going to take this color overlay away. Another method will be to create a gradient overlay. Now this actually looks very cool. So I can click on gradient overlay, and then it'll create a graduated effect between one color and another. So I can have like this black going to white, or I can go and click on this gradient here and we can change it. I can say, right, I want this color black, I want to have this red right here. So I can go to this black point right here, double click on that, and then go to this red heart, and I can click on the bottom section right here and I can sample that red color. I can click on OK, and then I'm using that red color again to create my color here, and I can now move this white point around here so I can say how much of that white I also want in there. Once I'm happy with this, I can just click OK, and now we're using a different effect with our color. So now I can also put, say, a stroke effect around it. I can click on stroke, and then I can decide, alright, maybe I want to use the same red that's around this, also want on the text. So I can go to color. Right, so I've clicked on the color there, I've sampled it, click on OK, and now we can see the red color around the image. Or not around the image, around the text. I can also click on the size and I can control the size of that stroke around that. Now we can also go here to drop shadow now, and now drop shadow will look a little bit better. I can also say how big I want that shadow to be, the size of the shadow, or if I want to, I can go over to it. But now another important point, remember earlier on I said that we must always turn the global light off. You don't want it to affect anything else on the image. I can now turn global light off, and I'm only moving this one around. So I can say I want that to be, say, around there, and I want to make it very soft. So I'm going to go to the opacity of the drop shadow and make it a little bit lighter. Now I can also use the inner shadow if I want to. I click on that, and I've got a shadow on the inside of the text. If I drag it, if I make it a little bit, the size a little bit larger and the choke a little bit stronger, it's almost going to give this like a 3D indent effect to the text. And if you want, you can also go to this black color, right? You click on that, and again, sample the color red there. Doesn't that look very cool? Now you've got that same 3D indent effect, but now it's a red shadow you've got there, not a black shadow. Now we can also put a bevel around it. If I click here on bevel and emboss, you can see that if I increase the size here, you can see I've also can control the roundness and also how hard that effect must be, and also the depth of that effect. So I can also control that. I actually prefer the previous one without this bevel and emboss. But now, as you can see, I've done a lot of things. So I'm going to click OK here now. I have done a lot to this project. As you can see all the different effects I've got here. And you'll also notice I went pretty quick through all these, and if you watch this video you might have a hard time keeping up with looking at everything I'm doing and then doing it on your own image. And the only real way that you'll be able to master these layer styles is by just going nuts. Open up a bunch of pictures and play around with all the different options that's in this layer style. Just double click and then work your way through all of these and see the effect that it will have. As you can see, there's a bunch of other ones I didn't even show you now. And that's the only way you're going to learn. There's no magic recipe. So open this image, choose this one, looks awesome, click OK. Go and play with your images, and then you will learn how this layer styles can really add a lot of effect to your text and to your pictures, as I really use these layer styles a lot. Now that's that for this video. And the next one, we are going to look at content aware scaling, which is a really awesome tool. So see you in the next video.